brave. It's not an easy thing to do, as organizations, take a chance on your advertising and marketing agencies and actually, listen to them, because it is a faith-based thing, like the work that we do, but the more faith you have, the more dividends it pays off in the end.
You're listening to Build Up, a ZGM podcast. I'm Selena.
And I'm Jordan. And we're here to shake up the world of home builder marketing.
On today's show, we have a couple fabulous guests. Ryan Kenny is our copy director here at ZGM, and Scott Steele is the director of visual execution. This is a long overdue conversation with these two, and it's going to be a very eventful conversation, I'm sure.
Always is. And also, great history of the Build Up podcast with these two, as they were involved in the original creation.
I know. Coming back together with the OG fam.
Nice.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Welcome to Build Up Podcast, Scott and Ryan. I'm excited for this because both of you have been involved since the inception of Build Up, but from the brand side.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes. So I'm super excited to be chatting with you now about brand and talking to our audience about brand.
This is long overdue.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So welcome to the show.
Thanks. Yeah. Good to be here.
Let's dive in with a really big question, open question. I'm excited to see where you'll both go with it. But what is brand to you?
Yeah, I have an answer. I'm totally curious. Ryan and I did not talk before this at all.
Good.
So
good. Better. Yeah.
we could have talked. So yeah, I think brand is the outward expression of an organization's purpose. So like your logos and your headlines and your colors and your ads and your marketing strategy and stationery and all that should be crafted thoughtfully to bring that purpose to life. And when you combine all those ingredients together, the totality of them are what you would call a brand. So Ryan and I actually, it's funny, we work on like the little potato company, right? And we had a pretty big hand in developing and crafting what that brand feels like, looks like, and all that sort of stuff. And so like when we talk about purpose, like everything that we build from there in terms of the brand should sort of offshoot from the purpose of the brand. And then from there, it's like, if you want to think of the purpose as kind of the heart and soul of your brand, at least that's the way I look at it, then the brand itself is the brain, and then the brand identity and the sort of everything that comes out of that, which would be like your logos and your visual expression, is sort of the clothing that you wear on a day-to-day basis, and like the way that you talk to people and express your things, but it's all coming from your heart, right? Companies and organizations want to be true to that purpose, and then that will help them with their expression, which is the brand that people see.
Yeah.
How's that?
So
Was that okay?
That was really good.
Yeah, it's great. So you see the heart of the brand as the purpose. Is that right?
In my mind, there's lots of ways. I think, like, even at ZGM, it's a little different than the way that I'm describing it, and other companies and organizations might attribute different things. I almost think of it like religion in a way. It's like everyone's sort of praying to this being or whatever, but then everybody does it in a little bit of a different way, right? So it's all cool, and you kind of just go through life in that way, but that's the way I think about it. It's just like my personal interpretation is kind of like the heart is the purpose, and the head is the brand that ends up being, and then like that's your brand pillars and all that sort of stuff. It's the mental stuff, the the things that like drive who you are. And then the expression or the thing you see, like your logos and your copywriting, your headlines, that's your clothing, right? Like that's the stuff that you can change too. Like when you're like, we need a brand refresh. It's like, that's you changing your clothes to share a different part of your persona. So yeah, it's my easy way to sort of apply this to human beings, I guess.
Yeah. I like it. I like it a lot.
You talked a lot about purpose. I kind of like orient myself more to brand positionings personally, because it's like that's the really ownable thing. And it's like I think of brands as like, how are you gonna stand out and own something and be distinctive in whatever category that you operate in? And so for me, I always actually get like more excited about brand positionings and brand purposes, because purposes is kind of like, yeah, that's the behind the scenes inspirational stuff, but the positionings where like the rubber hits the road, it's like, okay, how are we actually standing out? Like what is it about us and what we do that's actually different and unique from our competitors? And how is that going to be clear in the minds of our audience? So yeah, so for me, it's like, I don't discount the value of purpose, but I always kind of glom on to positioning. I think like that's what, as you go down through all the process of expressing the brand visually and through words and then through campaigns and all the creative work that comes out of it, it's, if you haven't nailed your position, then you're not going to have as much success as you would want. So yeah, I think that's a good like varying perspective of like, what you kind of focus on. So yeah, for me, it's like if you can nail a distinctive, unique position for how, who you are and what makes you different in the market, then that's going to, bring to life all the other pieces that's going to see you succeed.
It's so interesting. I would not have guessed that positioning would have been your favorite. Just because it's like sort of as a writer, like purpose is like the more like creative, like fun, fluent, kind of imaginative stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But that's awesome. I love
Yeah,
it.
I'm lucky I get to work with Ryan on a bunch of stuff, but like I get it because this is like the stuff in market that people are going to be like, okay, this is differentiating me from, or this brand from that brand or whatever, this builder from that builder. So there's a lot of things you could like bounce off of from positioning. I think purpose like is so important internally, within an organization and like for our team, like Scott, when you're coming up with like gorgeous visuals, the purpose really helps drive that.
Inspiration.
Yeah. Whereas like positioning is like the meat to help you like develop your messaging.
It's the more strategic part, I would argue.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we spend so long developing it.
Yeah.
It takes forever.
I was going to say in my career, I once had a title of senior creative strategist. So there's a strategy piece of my brain that gets engaged by positioning.
I see it.
It is interesting though. I do think that it's funny because like we're, as writer, art director partners, like Ryan and I are, it's good that we have those two kind of different things. Like I'm very strategic too, and Ryan's very creative too. But like we feel things differently, so like when it comes to the way that where I hang my hat, it's like, yeah, if for Little Potato Company, exactly, like everything should make people smile, like, but that's a heart thing, right? Like everything that we make, even our little spuddies and stuff, like that's what gets me out of bed every day. And yeah, for Ryan, it's like
get you out of bed every day.
Yeah, they carry me.
It's like Cinderella, and they're like the little birds that bring you clothes.
Totally. But I think people will be able to hear that from me. It's like, yeah, he's the weird one. But yeah, no, I agree. I love positioning too. Like that's a huge part of when I get like an excellent positioning statement from the strategic team or something like that just makes total sense, and it's like helps drive brands forward. Like that's your driver, and I think that it's really important in the whole thing as well.
I love where this conversation is going on brand, and obviously the conversation is that purpose and positioning are the two most important parts of brand, or maybe the starting point of brand. I want your sort of definition from each of you on purpose and positioning. Like, what are those, and how do they interplay within the brand?
I kind of think of it as like the why and the how is how I kind of orient to it usually. Is like why we exist and the big question of, what's driving us as an organization and why we even are here doing what we're doing is at that purpose level. But then, so if this is our purpose, how do we bring that to life, or how do we put that out into market? And that's the positioning. So that's kind of how I usually think of it.
Totally. Yeah, I'm actually just right there with you.
Yeah.
I don't have any difference in opinion on that whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's like it's the heart. Like I think the purpose is why you would want to, why does your company exist? what is that reason? And if there is no reason, then you've got a problem. But then, yeah, you take that and you need to activate it in some way. And the activation usually is in the form of the driver, which can be the positioning, and is.
That's a really nice way to look at it, Scott, like the activation. So you're all sort of here and you're like, yeah, rah, 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 purpose, purpose, purpose. We're so excited.
Yeah, exactly.
Rah, rah, rah.
Yeah, but if you have no
right?
drive, right? If there's no driver, then purpose means nothing. So yeah, you gotta have both. They're best of buddies in the brand world.
That's awesome.
So going into kind of building a brand and how you would approach that, we're talking about, the foundational elements, the, purpose and positioning. And, from like client side and working with clients, we do a lot of like interviews and investigative conversations with clients to try to get the details of why they exist and who they are. And then hopefully we're delivering some good stuff to your team, the storytelling team, to help us kind of bring things to life. So I'm kind of curious to see how you kind of approach like getting that information, and what are your like kind of next steps after we give you the dump of stuff.
I mean, it's just like a logical, you're building, it's like you've got foundation is the purpose, and then the positioning is built on top of that, and then you start building the brand expression on top of that. So everything has to have like a logic and a flow and work, from that core or that base. I generally, on the writing side, next would be tone of voice before getting into key messages or messaging pillars, because you should know what your tone is before like writing to it if you don't have something to write to. So yeah, I mean, I think tone, how I like to approach it is like this, not this. So there's usually an extreme interpretation of any given tone note that can put it in the wrong direction. So like a common one would be like confident, not arrogant, for example. It's great to be confident in your voice and how you write and express yourself, but you don't want to come across as arrogant. It's like taking all those inputs, like you said, it's not just purpose and positioning. You've got a bunch of audience research. You've got a bunch of interviews with executive team and marketing team. And, we might have gathered some other data that has some insights into the market and where we want to be and who we want to talk to. And then, so it's considering all of those things and then, building out that tone that's going to really have the right kind of personality and have the right kind of voice for who we're talking to and what we're talking about and supporting that positioning. And then from there, it's like, okay, what are the main things we want to say? And those are kind of those messaging pillars and then it's like key messages that flow out of that. So there's logic and, a rational process and path that you kind of have to go down, and then everything feels really cohesive in the end. But yeah, Scott, do you want to talk about maybe more on the visual side?
Yeah, so like a lot of that sort of strategic growth and stuff is a very written based thing, and obviously Ryan's really good at all of those sorts of things. I don't usually see a lot of this stuff until that aspect is fairly formulated and pretty concrete. So when I get it, it'll usually have the brand purpose, the pillars, and all of these things, sort of the core structure of the makeup of what's holding up the company. And then from there, I'll get a brief around how do we bring that to life from a visual standpoint, but even from the writing standpoint. Ryan will get briefed in again at the same time to do sort of the what's the outward expression of what we're saying as well. But from a visual standpoint, that could include things like the logo or the color palette or any of that sort of stuff. If you go back to the Little Potato Company example, if we're saying that we want to, create little moments of happiness for busy families, and they want to be a more family-oriented company, then like what are the choices around colors and logos and stuff like that we're creating, right? So in that case, it was let's make a big, giant, friendly, wonky logo that is cute and fun whatever, but like huge so that everyone can see it when it's in a grocery store, and kind of wacky, and you can animate it in fun and interesting ways because we want it to be family friendly and we want it to make people smile and all of these kinds of things. And then, oh, like, what are we going to do with the little potatoes? Let's make a bunch of little potato characters and throw them out into the world and make them really fun and engaging and whatever. And so like we invented all that sort of stuff to support the work that was done on the brand platform, right? Because if you can do that, everything's going to make sense. Like all the decisions you make will make complete sense because you have the the foundation for it built. That's nice for me because I would get too far in the weeds on any of that, like the brand pillar stuff. It's confusing to me.
Yeah.
I do appreciate it.
Yeah. I think there's going to be like a lot of people in the home building industry that are craving potatoes after this.
Yeah.
episode.
Everyone's going to go out and buy little potatoes.
Oh, by the way, then this is an advertisement for Little Potato.
Yeah, this episode's
Certified.
sponsored by the Little Potato Company.
This is what you call guerrilla marketing.
Yeah.
Really, really subversive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. Obviously, having the two of you on the show today was intentional in that we've got, copywriter, art director side of the equation. Those are two very important parts of the brand, the look and the sound of the brand. Scott, where do you sort of start when it comes to that visual expression? Like, so you've got the brief, you've got the brand foundation platform. How do you take that and then think and express that visually?
I think a lot of times it starts with a competitive analysis. So like for me, my process is like I get all of that stuff, and sometimes this happens in the brief too, where like I'll be provided with what's out there, and I have a pretty simple process by which I follow to keep me sort of always creative, which is to whatever it is, don't do what anybody else is doing. And it seems like an obvious thing to say, but in practice, it's actually really hard because there's conventions that are associated with industries. So, and things that industries and people who work in industries accept as the realities visually or whatnot.
Like trying to put a house into a logo for a home builder?
Yeah, exactly. So trying to make sure that if you do have to follow those conventions, you're at least knowledgeable on everything that is surrounding it. So you can try to find a place to carve out a visual identity that isn't being done. A really great example is actually the new Rohit rebrand. I think they did such a bang up job on like making it feel more alive. It just feels good and it feels modern and it doesn't feel so far removed from what they've had previously, but it was a really good refresh of a brand that was doing well, at least visually, but like just helping it along, pushing it even further, making it more niche, helping it separate just a little bit further. So yeah, like that's like the very first step in that process, I think. And then the rest is kind of what most people think. You draw, like you sketch or you make a bunch of logos, you share them with all your teammates, and you bring color palettes in, you share them with your teammates, and the things that people would expect from the design challenge or whatever. But what people maybe don't know is like there's a lot of competitive research and competitive analysis and trying not to tread on territory that's been done. And then taking the brand pillars and making sure that you start from that point too.
This is kind of connected to what you're both talking about, but I think just from my experience with some home builders, when they're talking about brand and like our brand, they're talking about their logo. When they're talking about visuals, it's logo. Not all the time, but often. And they're like, we have our brand. Our brand is good. Our brand is our logo. And I think what ZGM does really, really well, and what we've helped a lot of home builders with, and other clients with as well, of course, is like showing like the depth of a brand through visual expression and like messaging expression in like a brand guide or a brand book. I'd love to see like kind of what your favorite element or something that you like are like, this is so important, always include it in like your brand guide or brand book.
What comes to mind for me is like a unique visual approach, because it's like you see a lot of happy families inside of beautiful home products or out for a walk in the neighborhood with their dog. And so
Holding hands with the toddler.
yeah, so there's a lot of visual sameness. And so I think being able to clearly show on the visual side, I know like a visual side isn't my, what I do day to day, but I do think that the brands on the home building side that can find a distinctive visual approach to all the elements, photography, illustration, colors, fonts, all that stuff, that can really help stand out. I think there's obviously on the voice and tone and key messages, if there's something that you can really own, like that's very important to take. It's essentially, taking that positioning that I was talking about before, and then what are those key messages that are going to express that really clearly, and narrowing in on like what are the three things that we're going to say over and over again that people are going to really understand. Oh, they're the blank home builder. We've got this distinctive thing. So I think that's really important. But if you look like everybody else, even if you're saying something that's more unique, it might just be wallpaper.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, we often look at it, and Selena and I often talk about sort of the Instagram test. And like, if you only followed home builders and flipping through Instagram, would you even be able to tell the difference? Because you'd like home styles, for the most part, fit within certain boxes. Like, there's some builders who are like, oh yeah, that their design style, like interior style, stands out. But for the most part, you can flip through, and unless someone has a unique visual device or a style or tactic or whatever, you're just going to kind of keep flipping and be like, I don't know the difference between any of these.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna pump our own tires now.
About time.
Yeah, geez, that guy. No, I mean, it's actually for the same client, funny enough, like Rohit. Like, I think some of the visual ID elements could have used a refresh, which I think they did very, very well. However, I do think that what we had achieved from a photographic standpoint when we did the brand was an extremely smart way to approach it, which was completely different than any other home builder anyone had ever seen, right? With the way that we approached it. And we got a wonderful friend of ours, Adrian, to do these fantastic photos. And we focused on something that people don't usually focus on when you're that kind of home builder. And that is part of branding. Like, people don't really think about that aspect of it. But in every single brand guide, there's a photographic section that says, this is what we do. And this is what we don't do. It's like, that annoys the crap out of me. I think that was a really thoughtful expression of the brand and a really interesting way to look out into the world at a billboard and just automatically know that that was a Rohit billboard. That's the thing that's missing. Make a nod to that too. Like, I totally agree with Ryan on all of those things. It's funny for me as a designer and an art director, it's like, what shouldn't you include in your identity guides? And that list is actually longer, I think, than most people would imagine. You're designing for, I have always thought that like your identity guidelines should inspire the designers who are using it. Like that should be the purpose of it, other than to show off like, this is our logo and this is who we are as a brand or whatever. But why can't that thing not be a template? It shouldn't be a template. It should inspire and be as well designed and well thought through as every other piece of material, like corporate material that you design. So in that case, the fact that I see brand guides all the time and they're literally like word for word the same thing over and over and over again, it doesn't give me any confidence that there was any thought put into the rest of the brand, right? And there is. It's just sometimes this is a problem.
Yeah, and just to, I was just thinking, not everybody who's listening will have seen that Rohit example. So it was essentially like close-up photos of details, like a faucet or that kind of thing, that were like the high-end designer pieces. Yeah, designer details, exactly. So normally you'd have this, pulled back, the lens is showing off the entirety of the room and the lovely design, but to actually like key in and have like it dropping out of focus and have like a really stylized lighting design and that sort of thing. There's a moodiness and
So
focusing on those details was quite distinctive compared to everything else that was.
And like weird details. Like, do you remember? I can't remember the name of it. Remember
There were
the
railings.
Schluter?
Schluter.
Schluter.
Yeah, Schluter.
I'm like, yes, I remember that. Remember the
Yeah.
Schluter? We were like laughing, and then like Adrian made it look unbelievable. It was nice. It's a great detail to have in a home.
Yeah. But imagine
It
just sort of
looks
saying that, just being like, oh yeah, we're gonna do like photography of the Schluter.
A seductive Schluter.
And that's going to be your billboard,
Yeah. But like, yeah, at the end of it, like, their positioning, and it's evolved a bit since then, but they're the designer home builder, and it was all about those details and those designer details. And so we shot it with a lot of emotion, a lot of drama, and focusing in on those details and kind of blurring out the rest of the background to be like, yeah, like we've made really, really delicious choices when it comes to these designer details. And yeah, it was great stuff. It really stood out. That passed the Instagram test big time.
Yeah, and then being smart about that, and then applying the price factor to that, and by saying like, this beautiful photo you can get for that price. I always thought that was a really brilliant strategic, like, I don't know, business decision, to sort of like, you can get that, and for that, so I know it's just a picture of a handle, but it's so well crafted and so well shot that it's just like, it made complete sense, at least in my eyes, that you could say those two things and pair those two things together, and it would be a very compelling piece of, advertising or marketing.
Yeah, we did door handles too.
Yeah.
Like
It was like, I want that door handle.
yeah. We were crazy.
I know.
So bold.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. Great conversation, obviously, about some examples and some brands that we've done. What sort of, from both of your perspectives, what's a piece of advice that you would give builders about their brands? Doesn't necessarily have to be from your perspective, written and visual sides, just in general, but maybe something you think is seeing as a mistake or something that's overlooked, something that you would just be like, okay, builders, please stop doing this, or please do this.
Yeah, I kind of alluded to it actually in like previous answer where I said sea of sameness. Like, I think that's what stands out for me, is that there's so many ads for different builders that just look and feel the same, which is nice, family friendly, lifestyle photography, show off the product nicely. So it's like, it's all nice. And, it's like, okay, yeah, that looks like a nice living room or kitchen. And, I can kind of see my family in that family or whatever. But if everything is like that, then there's nothing that's going to make you stand out against your competitors. And that kind of goes back to that positioning, like I was saying earlier, is like, well, what is it that makes you different? What is it that makes you stand out? And then whatever that is, you need to find the visual expression and the, written expression that's going to really own that and make it super clear to people, like, this is what we stand for. So it's like, as long as it's rooted strategically in who they are and what makes them unique and distinctive. And if there isn't something that makes them unique and distinctive, that is actually like a business challenge. Like, it's like, okay, well, maybe we've got to find something and we've got to make some business decisions about what are we building, or who are we building for, and what can we stand on that does differentiate us. And then that will fuel that something visually and something in the tone of voice and in the way that things are written that is actually going to make it stand out, because nice family friendly lifestyle isn't going to cut it.
Yeah. It's interesting too, on that idea of sameness, like from the strategic brand platform side of things, like when we have conversations with builders, the things that come up: high quality, innovative, the people who work here are great. Yes. Fantastic. We all know that. Every single builder says that. Do not hang your hat on high quality, innovation, or your people, because every other builder does that as well.
You know what question is the best question, and where we get the real like, moment, is when we ask, if you didn't exist tomorrow, what would people miss? Yeah, what would be missing? And honestly, I don't think we've done a lot of interviews, and usually the answer is, I don't know. I don't think they'd miss us. And that's where the positioning,
illuminating.
and that's, I think, a little bit of like an aha moment a lot with some of the clients we work with, and then we help them get into that. This is who you are. This is your purpose and like your positioning. But yeah, that question to me is always like, I always wait for it to see what the reaction will be.
Yeah. Mine is like, be the company that wants to create brand love, right? Like at the end of the day, what's going to get you people in your doors is brand love, like connecting with people on a truthful way, being human, and like actually, sharing the fact that you have humans that work at your company. I don't think anybody looks at home builder companies and just thinks like for some reason just feel like robots work there. Like it's not just like from the general public standpoint, right? It's like they manufacture homes. They look out into the world and there's like 1 billion homes, So for me, it's like you want to be you're not just building homes, you're building communities for people. You're building places where people build memories, make memories, all of these sorts of things that go into it. It doesn't matter which home builder you are, you're doing that. But like that allows you to be loved because you're creating these experiences for people. So the people that move into your homes you should want them to come and buy it from you again, like your next home, or you should want them to talk about you when they're having dinner with friends and family around the table. And there's no reason why you can't create brand love as a home builder. I mean, there's none. It's just a great answer. They just don't do it.
I know. And it's like the biggest purchase of somebody's life. And this is the space where I see the most opportunity for life. Like this is a lifestyle brand. Like you're living in this space. You should be, like what you're saying, part of the conversation and like community building, like around the brand. And community building is like the future of like every brand. If you're not building a community around your brand, you're in a little bit of trouble going forward. But this is the space to do that. And like, it's, I don't know, hopefully we can start doing it a little bit more because like, what an opportunity.
It reminds me, Scott, of when we created All Dreams Start at Home. Like that to me was just like, that's something real good there. And we can create a lot of real good brand love around this. Like it was deep and meaningful and connected to the brand and had like a real heart brand love moment to it.
Yeah, I was very proud of that. It makes sense. It's hard when I get it. It's hard when you're a company who has, it's like bottom lines. They gotta get people in the door. It's not an easy thing to do. So I guess the second part to my thing is be brave. As organizations, take a chance on your advertising and marketing agencies and actually, listen to them because it is a faith-based thing. Like the work that we do, but the more faith you have, the more dividends it pays off in the end.
Yeah.
So
trust us.
Bravery. Just be brave.
Something you said there just made me think of too, like what you're saying about we got to sell homes and that sort of thing is like, I think the companies that succeed long term are investing in both brand and sales. So there's always those immediate sales pressures. It's like, we've got these quick possessions that aren't moving. We got to sell them and we don't want to be holding on to inventory, all that sort of stuff. But it's like, if you're only doing that for an extended period of time, then it's going to start to slide, right? You got to be putting out that brand advertising and getting that out there so that you're continually fueling the brand side. And then that's going to help your sales side because when somebody's ready to buy, you're kind of top of mind. There's already positive associations. They kind of know what you're all about. And then when you serve them that ad that has a price point and a product or whatever, it's like, that this is a company, this is one of the two that I'm considering or whatever. And now you're going to make that sale a lot easier.
Ryan talking about the brand funnel. Thanks, Ryan. You got to fill the funnel and mine. And like that consumer purchase process for buying a home is not like overnight. It's not like buying like gum or something, So like being in places of trust, we talk about it often with clients. Like, we're of course we need to be in digital spaces and talking about price point, but we have to be in like places of trust where like, oh, I saw them in a magazine or I saw them on a billboard. Like that's a lot of investment. Or I saw them on TV when I was watching the Oilers game. Like, okay, like they're serious, and like start building that trust and getting, familiar with who they are. And then once they're in that space to buy a home, hopefully they're so excited that they're visiting you first is what we want to do.
Mm-hmm.
But, at least when they start seeing those like price point ads coming up, they're like, yeah, that's the brand that blah. All right.
Silence.
I know. It's
Did we
good.
do it?
I'm so happy. That was nice. Thank you so much.
Ryan, Scott, thank you so much. This was such a good conversation. Great to get your perspectives from the written and visual side of brands, and let's do it again sometime.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Ryan and Scott.
Took you long enough to bring me.
I know.
Yeah,
so
geez
bad.
Louise.
Basically created the build-up identity like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See you
Thanks
later.
for having
Bye.
me and Ryan. It's all right.
Cool.
See ya.
Bye.
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 Selena, fun conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of good, interesting conversation, insights, and learning. What was your number one takeaway?
That I laugh way too much when Ryan and Scott are in the same space as me. They're so funny and so smart and shared so many great notes and insights. My favorite thing probably was towards the end of our conversation, just that takeaway of like, how do we stand apart or stand, a little bit more out as a home builder amongst the sea of sameness, as Ryan mentioned. And something Ryan said and Scott said, both of them, was that feeling of like, don't be afraid to differentiate yourself. And Scott said it really well of like, be brave.
Yeah.
Trust your agency, trust your partners that you're working with. If you have a great relationship with them, they're going to do what's in your best interest. Of course, like we want the builders we work with and all of our clients to succeed, and we want them to stand out and, not only, of course, have a great brand and great ads and great campaigns, but great business success as well.
Yeah.
And I think, we spoke a lot about positioning and our brand platforms, but everything comes down to that. So building that, establishing that with, with us, with clients with their agency partners, will really help you feel confident in being brave.
Yeah. And I think like one of the interesting things for me when I think of creativity and ideas and, that revolves around brands, I look at things and if they make me a little bit uncomfortable, I know that we're in really good territory. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is your brain is wired to find things that are familiar and to find comfort in that. And if you are working on a brand idea or a creative concept or something of that, and you're just like, oh yeah, I'm super comfortable with this. Mm-hmm. That means that it's because it's familiar.
Yeah.
You've seen it before. It's not an original, cool, different, interesting idea.
Yeah.
If you look at the idea and you're like, oh, I'm a little bit uncomfortable, but I'm also excited.
Yeah.
That's when you have something really special.
That spark, hey, that like, aha. I read once, it's like, there has to be like the ha, like, like the ha, or like a ha kind of reaction. And you're like, okay, you're going in the right direction when you see something. But if you're like, oh yeah, that feels right. And it's like, okay.
Yeah, totally.
Especially in this space, right? With builders.
100%.
Yeah.
Like obviously every category, every industry, there's an element of that. Yeah. But like home builders are such an interesting and unique category. And, there's a lot of borrowing and sharing and following the same paths and ideas. And there's a lot more opportunity that we can dive into. And that's where the really exciting stuff comes from. And then that's where the really interesting success comes from.
Exactly.
And so lots to do there. Mm-hmm. My takeaway, I loved when Scott talked about brand love.
Yeah.
I thought that was so interesting. Like, and I love that idea. Like, your brand should do more than just like, oh, okay, like I know what that is, or like I know about that. Like, it should evoke emotion. Like, people should be like, oh yeah, I love that brand. Because like, if you think about the best brands in the world, like, just think of any brand off the top of your head. Mm-hmm. Chances are there's an emotional connection there. There's something that's like, oh yeah, I loved this, or I love them for that reason. Like, nobody's favorite brand is I don't know, think of something boring.
Something boring and basic.
Yeah, like Texas Instruments.
Yeah.
Like maybe if you're like a super nerd.
Do I know what that is? I don't even know if I
They
know
like
what
calculators.
Oh, do they? Aw. We can help you. I'm sorry.
Maybe I should have gone with like
Texas Instruments.
it's random. I should have gone with like a pencil company. What's a pencil company?
Honestly, I was going to say Bic, but I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
even know. Maybe
You know what?
there might
Bic
be a
can
little
make
bit of
some
brand
fun
love. I think it was like
emotional
Seinfeld, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a little bit of a brand love there. But I see what you're saying. Yeah, there's spaces where it's like there's brands where you're like, I love that. Like for me, I'm like, I love Nordstrom. I love them so much. Like I
totally.
love shopping there, obviously, but I just like love them. It's funny.
Yeah.
it's like personification almost. They're my friend.
Yeah, if you think about any brand that you are very interested in,
Yeah.
there's like you're gonna love them.
Yeah.
For some reason. And that's what like I think builders can get there. I think builders
100%.
often feel like, oh no, like that's not worth our investment, that's worth our time, because that's people buy a house every once in a while and it's not that big of a deal and it's a big money spend, so that's just transactional. Disagree 100%.
Yeah.
I think it's emotional. I think you can get the brand love. I think you can get there. I think we've done it for builders we've worked with. Brand love. Find the thing.
Yeah.
Get people to fall in love with it. That's how you're going to stand out, be different, have a great brand, and be successful.
Yeah, and build community.
Oh, yeah.
You build community with that kind of emotion,
Yeah.
and people like think of you, recommend you, and like you're become that top of mind space. And like I love when Scott said like part of the dinner conversation. Yes, be part of the dinner conversation. You're in the house built by the builder. Let it be part of the dinner conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's really good. Ooh, exciting stuff.
Yeah, great conversation.
This is our second last episode of the season.
Yes, that is correct.
So see you at the last one.
Yeah. And the last one is basically going to be more of this.
I know. I'm so excited. I have so many notes and things
You
to
and
talk
I are
about.
just going to rant on about brand for 45 minutes, and that's going to be the whole episode.
Stay tuned.
So hope you're excited for that.
So funny.
See you next
Bye.
time. Bye.
This has been Build Up, a ZGM podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and subscribe on your favorite listening app. Thanks to Shelby, our editor and producer, Scott for our original music, and you for listening along. Be sure to follow us on your favorite social platform at Build Up Podcast.